Hi, I just wanted to come on here briefly to go in a little bit more in depth. I just put out a short with regards to um, transitions and a lot of emotions and things going on in the world right now. I was speaking more on an individual basis because it's coming up for a lot of people, myself included. There's a lot churning up, whether it's in dreams, whether it's worldwide, but there's just a lot of energy going on in the world right now. And, it's eclipse season. So I, it all is connected, right? So, people understand that, oh, and the moon is full, everyone goes weird, right? and we kind of accept that. But there's reasons for it. If you think of your body makeup, we're like what, 60, 70% water. And then think of the impact that the moon has on the tides and the ocean, right? So it makes sense that gravitationally, or however else you want to explain it, it's going to have an impact on us because it's going to pull on us, right? Well, the same thing goes with any kind of major planetary alignments and things like that. It's not as overt. It's not something that mainstream really talks about a lot, other than like, oh, it's a solar eclipse, it's super cool. And it's, that's when they'll talk about astronomy, right? Which is super cool. It's all connected. These different phenomenons have an impact on us as people. We can see it in our animals and we accept that. Like a storm, right? When we have like major storms, we're like, oh, well, watch the dog, because it has an impact on them. And it's not just the loud noises, it's not just the thunder. Because if we're actually paying attention to ourself and how we're feeling internally, we recognize that we feel a way too. Like, I love thunderstorms because it puts me in like an activated type energy. And what I mean by that is it's like I'm not anxious. I'm I'm not excited, but I'm somewhere in there because it feels different. I don't know how else to explain that. And everyone has their own perceptions on those types of things. Some people feel things more strongly than others. We can say that about our pain receptors as well as our emotional. If you talk in therapy, we talk about how some people feel emotions more strongly than others. And those are the people that we call empaths, or those are the people that we call sensitive, right? Because we live in a world that loves labels, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the world we live in because that's how we conceptualize our environment, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not judging it. I'm not saying, everything has its place. Some people need more labels than others. If you think of someone who struggles with, I don't know, if they're on the spectrum or even ADHD, sometimes those people that have those types of diagnoses need a little more structure in their life, okay? Need consistency more. And oftentimes things like reminder stickers, like especially for children who are still learning how to navigate their brain, they may benefit from having like little reminder stickers on the mirror in the bathroom that says brush your teeth, or stuff like that. Honestly, some of us, depending on what's going on in our heads, could benefit from that too. I remember when I was in grad school, I was so forgetful because I was so focused, hyper focused on my schoolwork, that I someone could ask me, like, can you order a pepperoni pizza? And by the time I dialed the number and they answered and said, what can I get you? I couldn't remember what I was ordering. I mean, to the point where I literally said to my doctor, I'm like, do I have like early onset dementia or something? And honestly, she was the first one to mention to me that because it was like early on in grad school, but it was like the idea that anxiety can have that kind of an impact on your brain. It can make us forgetful because we're so scatterbrained, if you will. And in my sense, it wasn't so much that I was scatterbrained, I was hyper focused, but I was managing so many things. Because I was in grad school, I had 2 kids under 5, I was working pretty much 3 jobs at the time. I was managing a house. I was in a marriage. There was just so much going on that it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. So we all hit those parts in our life, right? Well, what I was talking about in my short is that there's just a lot of emotion, a lot of transitions going on in a lot of people's lives. Some people will say, like around eclipse seasons, that's a part, that's a, not a part, that's a time where there's a lot of purging and releasing, whether that's relationships, and relationships aren't just necessarily with other people. It could be relationships with habits, relationships with belief systems, relationships with ways of thinking, conceptualizing, and doing things, right? But there's a lot of that coming on right now where we see it even on a worldwide, where it's like we're gaining knowledge of certain things and releasing maybe expectations, releasing points of view, and not, I think we're coming out of, and I'm generalizing here, okay? Because there are some people that are still digging their heels in real tight, real deep. They're like, I'm not ever going to think any way different. I don't want any kind of this growth. I don't want it. And I'm not judging. Everyone's where they need to be. I believe that. Whether it's true or not, you do you. I'm just saying, in my life, with my belief systems, I'm trying to be as flexible as possible. I'm trying to be open to things that make sense, learning new things, growing, being innovative, trying to create a better way of living. Okay, not only, ultimately, we can only really focus on ourselves because we can't try and make people think like us. We can't try and make people think anything. And if we do, and a lot of people do try, we have to remind ourselves that we're not their God, okay? That's probably one of the fundamental things I have against any kind of organized type belief systems that says it's your responsibility to watch after this person's soul or this, that, and everything else. I said, no. I'm not saying don't care about people, don't give advice if asked. But when we are trying to control people, that's literal manipulation. When it's, you're going to go to hell if you don't do this or if you don't think like that. Some people really believe like that. Once upon a time in my life, I did too. I did. But I don't believe like that anymore. I don't believe it's my job to make sure you're healthy. I don't believe it's my job to make sure that you're going to heaven or wherever you think you're going, right? I don't think it's my job to do these things. It's my job to make sure I'm not living the life of a hypocrite. It's my job to heal myself, better myself. And by doing that, maybe I can live a life of example. I don't know. There's no such thing as perfect. You can be all peace and love. I try to be all peace and love. And there are still times where I want to throat punch someone. Okay. We all are who we are. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it. That's the difference. We can feel a certain way. It doesn't mean we're going to act on it, right? It's the acting on that is there to kind of, even the feeling is there to highlight for us what's going on within us and why, and making those connections for ourselves. But there's really there's no problem with feeling if we're using it to learn and grow and heal. Some actions, if I really felt like, I want to throat punch someone and I went off and did it, well, then there's consequences for that, right? There are positive and negative consequences for every action that we engage in, even within ourselves. Like just thinking about something and my belief system around it could be triggering for me. And then there's the consequence for that is I might sit in something for a little bit. The positive consequence of that, if I'm managing it properly for me, then maybe I feel better after I'm able to release it. I don't know. The thing is there's no cookie cutter way for everybody. So you got a lot of people, including myself, coming out here talking about how to manage this or what's going on and da 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 da. But that's not going to be everybody's experience. And that's okay. Okay. If I can put one thing out there, it's to recognize that this is not a competition. We do not have to compete with our fellow sister or brother or animal kingdom. It doesn't matter, you know? I mean, it's just, it's not a competition. It's recognizing that you're where you need to be in your soul's progression. And if you don't like how that looks in the mirror, then what can you do to work on that without harming others, right? Without projecting it on everyone else and making it their problem. It's taking that self-accountability and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, okay, I have this shadow aspect of myself. And I say that meaning negative behavior or negative belief system or whatever. Maybe when I'm showing up for something, I go right into fear mode. That's not typically me, but I'm using that as an example. Or maybe I go right into all the insecurities or all the lack mentality versus possibilities, right? What could go right? And some people like to focus on what can go wrong because then they feel like they're mitigating disappointment. I disagree with that. I think you're holding yourself back when you do that. But again, you do you. I'm not here to shame anyone. Everything is a lesson, and we keep repeating lessons until we learn them, integrate them, and release. I don't know if that makes sense, but for the people it's meant for, it will make sense. For the people it's not, just keep scrolling. Again, you do you. I'm just trying to talk about some of these things that a lot of people are feeling. A lot of people are going through major transitions in their life right now. And how is that different from any other time in the world? I don't know. I mean, people go through transitions all the time. But I think it feels more relevant right now because there's a lot going on in the world too. There has been for a few years now, probably longer, quite truthfully. But I can only speak to my experience. And I know for at least the last 4 years, and I think a lot of people feel this way because of COVID and everything else, but there's just been a lot of transition. And that's a lot to sit with sometimes. That's okay. You're not alone. Most people are feeling it in one sense or another. So just recognize that, you know, it doesn't mean you're going crazy. It doesn't mean you're broken goods or anything like that. It's just sometimes we need someone to talk it through with, maybe to help with gaining a different perception, a perspective, maybe challenging ourselves, and sometimes just loving ourselves enough to give yourself grace, compassion, and not shame, okay? Be mindful of the people that are shaming. We don't need that in life, not when we're all dealing with our own internal struggles. So be mindful of the people you keep, right? Be mindful of who you decide that you're going to exchange energy with, who you're going to attach with. Attachment comes in all forms. Sometimes it's just our own thought process. It's idealizing a situation that maybe isn't idealistic. I don't know. One person's idea of ideal is another person's idea of, eesh, I don't want to touch that, right? Again, there's no infinite right or wrong when it comes to our choices like that, okay? Yes, I think we can all agree that when we purposely try to hurt somebody or even not purposely try to hurt someone and we still hurt someone. That's not ideal. It doesn't feel good for us. It doesn't feel good for them. So we don't want to necessarily do that. Okay. However, we're all fallible human beings. We make mistakes. So give yourself grace and do the best you can. Sorry, my son just went in the bathroom. So I'm going to leave it there. I just wanted to come on here and just acknowledge that everyone's feeling it on some level or another, some degree, and you can call it whatever you want, why it's happening, or whatever the case may be. However, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't. So when it's happening across the generalized population, in this case, the entire world for the most part, then there's probably a bigger picture here. So you tap into whatever that may be for you. And just know that you're not alone, that a lot of, and I don't know, I think everyone's feeling it on some level. And I'm wishing you well, okay? All right, talk soon.